video, I'm going to show you how to multiply radical expressions. Now, this is going to be a lot easier than you think, because when we multiply radical expressions, the multiplication part is the same. So for example, 3 times 12 is 36, and so radical 3 times radical 12 is radical 36. Or we could say square root of 36. Okay, so the multiplication part stays the same, but then when you get down to your final answer, you do need to simplify your answer. And in this case, 36 is a perfect square number, and so 6 is our final answer. Take a look at this multiplication problem. The same thing works even when we're working with cubed problems. 3 times 18 is 54, and so the cubed root of 3 times the cubed root of 18 is the cubed root of 54. Now, to simplify a problem like this, I encourage you to sketch out a quick factor tree to find the prime factorization of 54. This would be 9 times 6. This breaks down to 3 times 3, and this is 2 times 3. Okay, because this is a cubed problem, you're looking for groupings of 3, and it's going to be kind of a lopsided grouping because they're kind of separate from each other. But there is 3 3s, and so to represent that you have one set of 3 3s, okay, you're going to put 1 3 on the outside of the radical. Next, I want you to draw your cubed radical symbol back, and any number that did not have or was not in a set of 3s goes in the middle. We just had this 2. And so this multiplication problem simplifies to 3 cubed roots of 2. Okay, take a look at this multiplication problem. This problem is structured just like a distributive property problem would be, and that's exactly how we're going to solve this problem. Now, if you feel more comfortable drawing these little arches to connect what you're multiplying, you certainly can do that. But in a situation like this, here's how we're going to multiply. There's two little rules I want to just kind of throw at you. When you're multiplying, you can only multiply a radical number with another radical number. So it has to be inside the radical and another number inside the radical, or under the radical is probably a better way to describe it. When you have an outside number, when you multiply it by an inside number, it's kind of like oil and water. They're just going to have to sit next to each other. So let me just go ahead and work through this, and hopefully you can catch on. So because the 6 is underneath the radical and so is the 12, you can multiply those to get the square root of 72. Now, because the 8 does not have a radical, but the 6 does, okay, the number that does not have a radical always goes first, and then the square root of 6. Okay, this problem is almost finished. You always need to check before you submit an answer that the number underneath the radical is in most simplest form. And to check if it's in most simplest form, you really need to find out what the prime factorization is of the number. So I like just working through a factor tree. So real quickly, 72 is 8 times 9, which is 4 times 2. Looks like we're going to have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. So just looking at this bottom row, you have a pair of 2s and a pair of 3s. So to simplify the square root of 72, you're going to pull 1 2 and 1 3 to the outside, which I will put right here. I'm going to go ahead and multiply those two together. 1 2 times 1 3 is 6 square roots of 2. We could not simplify 8 square roots of 6. So even though this does not look like a complete answer, okay, that is as far as you can take this example without using a calculator. Okay, let me show you one more example. This example is structured just like a FOIL example. So we're going to follow the same steps that we would use as multiplying a binomial times a binomial, except we're still going to follow the rules that you can only multiply a number that's underneath the radical with another number that's underneath the radical. And if you have one of each, if you have one number under the radical and one number that's not, they just sit next to each other instead of being multiplied together. So let's get started. If we were following the steps of FOIL, we would multiply our first together. And for right now, I'm just going to keep it underneath the radical and say x times x is x squared. We'll go back and simplify that one in just a minute. Next, the O stands for outside, and it's right here. Now this is a radical number and a non-radical number, and so the non-radical number goes first, but they do not multiply together. They stay separate. Okay, next we have the inside number, and it's the same idea. It's going to be plus 7 radical x. And then you have the last, I'm going to draw one more line. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go through and simplify this. I told you we'd come back to this one. The square root of x squared is x. This right here, those are common terms because the radicals are matching. And so we can add the outside number to be 5 radical x. And then we have the minus 14. All right, so that would be your answer to this last expression. It is x plus 5 radical x minus 14. Okay, I want you to pause the video and try some of these examples on your own.